بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. So we move on to the third hadith of the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, and I'll start by reading in Arabic. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن أبي عبد الرحمن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال: سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: بني الإسلام على خمس: شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وحج البيت وصوم رمضان. So Abdullah ibn Umar narrates that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, Islam is built on 5 things. Islam has been built on 5 things. The first is the shahada, the shahadatain, the shahada that there's no God but Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his messenger. Wa iqam as-salah, and establishing the prayer. So Islam is also built on establishing the prayer. Wa ita az-zakah, and giving zakah. Wa sawmi Ramadan, and fasting in Ramadan, which is what we're doing now. Wa hajj al-bayt, and doing the hajj, the obligatory, or the greater pilgrimage, you could say in English, the greater pilgrimage to the Kaaba. Okay, now, does everyone remember the hadith, or those of you here, do you guys remember the hadith we did yesterday had something about Islam, didn't it? For those of you who were here yesterday. Who was here yesterday? You were here yesterday. Yeah. What do you think is different about this one? How is this different to the one we did yesterday?
This one has the shahada in it.
That also had,
أخبرني عن الإسلام.
So he said, أخبرني عن الإسلام. قال الإسلام أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. So that was there yesterday as well.
Can you repeat that? The hadith and Islam, the answer to that?
Which one? This. أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله. Yeah, so what's the difference? If it's exactly the same, why do we think Imam al-Nawawi would bring this one as well? If he just brought the other one, which had Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, and also the hour, and then the signs of the hour. Now why is he going to bring another one, which also has Islam? Can anyone think of anything? Okay, what I'll say is, firstly, this one is just on Islam, so maybe it's to emphasize it, because the other one has a lot of things in it, right? This one is just on Islam, so it emphasizes the point. The other thing is, there's a specific part of the wording here. Did everyone hear what I said? Islam is built on 5 things. What's unique about the wording? What's different about the wording compared to yesterday? Islam is built on 5 things. When we say something's built on, what does that mean? What happens if you take away something that's built on? It collapses, right? So there we go. Maybe that's one unique thing about this that made Imam al-Nawawi bring this hadith straight after the other one. But apart from that, they're very similar. So we'll move on to the 4th hadith. This one is a bit longer. You cannot read it in Arabic first. عن أبي عبد الرحمن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال: سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو الصادق المصدوق: إن أحدكم يجمع خلقه في بطن أمه 40 يوما نطفة ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك ثم يكون مضغة مثل ذلك ثم يرسل إليه الملك فينفخ فيه الروح ويؤمر ب4 كلمات بكتب رزقه وأجله وعمله وشقي أو سعيد فوالله الذي لا إله غيره إن أحدكم ليعمل بعمل أهل الجنة حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع فيسبق عليه الكتاب فيعمل بعمل أهل النار فيدخلها وإن أحدكم ليعمل بعمل أهل النار حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع فيسبق عليه الكتاب فيعمل بعمل أهل الجنة فيدخلها. Okay, so Abdullah ibn Mas'ud narrates this hadith, and the first thing he says is, the Prophet ﷺ told us, and he is as-sadiq al-masduq. He is the truthful one and the one who is believed. Now, we didn't notice this wording in any of the other 3 hadith before. Like they just said, we heard the Prophet ﷺ say, or they had said the Prophet ﷺ told us this. But now this time the companion, the Sahabi or the companion of the Prophet who's narrating it, he says, the Prophet ﷺ told us, and he is the truthful one, and he is the one who's believed. Then he goes on to say what the hadith is. Can anyone, before we actually go into the hadith, can anyone guess why might he be saying that at the beginning? What do you think? Why would you need to say before you tell everyone what someone said to you? Why might you want to say before that person is truthful and we believe that person?
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, because it's hard to believe. Because what he's about to say is something which people might find strange. People might find it difficult to believe. So what did he say? He said, each one of you, your creation is يجمع خلقه في بطن أمه 40 يوما نطفة. So each person is in the womb of their mother. They're created in the womb of their mother, and there'll be a nutfa. What's nutfa? Can you help me?
Tissue. It's like a tissue once you like having the baby. It's like before forming the baby or before
Yes,
becoming
something
the
like that.
fetus.
Thank you. Yes.
Embryo.
Embryo. I think embryo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Embryo or zygote. Yeah. Okay. 40 يوما نطفة. So there'll be the embryo for 40 days. ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك. Then there will be the hanging form, clinging form for 40 days. So basically, it's about the development, the stages of development. ثم يكون مضغة مثل ذلك. Then there will be, to be honest, I can't remember the terms in English for these, but then it's the next stage basically. So it's 40 days, then development to the next stage, then development to the next, 40 days there, then another development to the next stage. Then it says, so after what? 3 stages and 40 days each. How many days is that? 120. So that's about 4 months, right? After 4 months, ثم يرسل إليه الملك. Then the angel is sent to him. فينفخ فيه الروح, and he blows into him the soul, or him or her. He blows into them the soul. فينفخ فيه الروح ويؤمر بأربع كلمات, and he's commanded with 40 things. 4 things. بأربع كلمات. بكتب رزقه. So the angel writes down their rizq. What does rizq mean? Anybody? The provision, their sustenance for what? For their whole life. بكتب رزقه. They write down their sustenance. بكتب رزقه وأجله, and their lifespan. So this is basically 4 months into the development of the child. The angel is coming and writing down what their provision is going to be over their life, and also what their lifespan will be. وأجله وعمله, and what their deeds will be. وشقي أو سعيد, and whether they'll be one of the miserable people or one of the happy people. Now, does anyone know what that could mean? Jannah or not? Yes, like heaven or hell. Okay, so now, do you remember what I said at the beginning? He said before narrating this from the Prophet, he first said the Prophet told us this, and he's the truthful one, and he's the one we believe. He's one who believes. So you can see now maybe you're getting some idea of why he said that, because as you can see, these things that he's saying from the Prophet are, maybe we might find them a little bit difficult to understand and to believe. Then he says, فَوَاللَّهِ الَّذِي لَا إِلَهَ غَيْرُهُ, because by Allah, إِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ, one of you, or some of you, or a person will be doing the actions of the people of paradise until he is only an arm span away from paradise. He's that close. He's that close to getting to paradise. Then the decree takes over, and he does the actions of the people of hell, and he actually enters. He does the actions of the people of hell, and he enters hell. And on the other hand, someone will be doing the actions of the people of hell. He'll be doing all the evil actions, the bad actions. Then again, decree takes over, and he does the actions of the people of paradise, and he enters paradise. So let's go over this now, because this requires a lot of explanation. How much time have we got? Okay. So firstly, he talks about what's this talking about? He's talking about qadr. Qadar is the predestination, we mentioned it yesterday as well. Now with Qadar, what do we know about Qadar? Can anyone tell me anything they know about Qadar? Any hadith they've heard about Qadar? Predestination. Can anyone tell me anything anything the Prophet has said about predestination? Yes?
Isn't it from the hadith that you mentioned yesterday about Iman?
Yeah, good. Yeah, exactly.
Your share.
Very good. So we have to believe in it. We have to believe in the predestination, both the good of it and the bad of it. What else? Anything else? Are we supposed to understand it?
No.
No, we're not supposed to understand it. So actually, the Prophet actually prohibited people from delving into the nature of qadar or predestination, delving into how it works and trying to understand it, because at the end of the day, our human mind is limited. I remember we had this question in DRW, and I gave the example of sight. Human sight is limited. You see, there's that wall over there. I can't see what's going on in the car park because there's a wall. My sight is limited. Now Allah can see everything, right? So Allah is not limited by a wall. So similarly, in a similar way, Allah knows what's going to happen in the future. Whereas for me, my mind is limited. My mind is limited. My thinking is limited. So there's no way I can understand this. How Allah knows what's going to happen in the future. But all we're told is what? All we're told is to believe in it. Now, what do we think? Is that problematic that we have to believe in something we don't actually understand?
I don't think so. I think it gives you a sense of certainty that whatever you face in this life, you know 100% with full certainty that it's for the greater good in the future. So to live with that ideology of certainty, it gives you peace in anything that happens, and it helps you deal with whatever comes your way.
That's very good. Yeah, I mean that's very true. But the point was, we don't actually understand how predestination works. So, is there a problem there to believe in something we don't understand? Like, yeah.
I'll actually first off refute that a little bit. So to say that everything that happens for good, it's not necessarily true, right? Predestination, as you said, it could be towards taking us towards something that is good for us, or towards something that in the worldly sense may not be good for us, right?
Yeah.
It's about the larger picture. Whereas as a Muslim, which literally translates to being slaves of Allah, right? So when we call each other, for example, Abdullah, or just the sense of Muslim, somebody who leaves his what he wants for the will of Allah. And so that the idea of believing in predestination then stems from that if Allah has decreed something for you, you have to accept it.
Okay, that's good. The point I was trying to make, maybe I didn't make it clear, is that there are those who will say, you can't. This doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to leave this part. This part doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to leave this part. So they say they're Muslim, but then at the same time, there are certain parts that they leave. And Allah says in the Quran, أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ. Are you going to believe in part of it and leave part of it? So the point here is really, once we believe in Allah, once we believe Allah is Allah, once we believe in Allah, then there are some things. So that part we need to try and understand. We need to think about it ourselves. We need to understand it. Why are we believing in Allah? Does it make sense to believe in Allah? Should I believe in Allah? Okay, and then you decide you are going to believe in Allah. Once you've decided you are going to believe in Allah, and once you know who Allah is, then anything that Allah has told us, or anything that the Messenger of Allah has told us, whether it makes sense to us or not, then we believe in that. You guys kind of get it? So it's like there's one thing we believe in, and that part we can actually try and understand. We can try and make some sense of it, and then that we actually think about it carefully ourselves, and then we believe in it. Once we believe in Allah, then anything that Allah tells us, whether we understand it or not, we just take it because we know Allah is Allah. So that applies here with qadar or predestination. Okay, moving on very quickly. So now again, as we said, I think some of you guys already mentioned or alluded to this idea. Our provision for our whole life is already written. this is an important point for us, because sometimes we get very anxious about where we're going to, how we're going to eat, how am I going to survive, and so on. And at the end of the day, we should realize everything that we're going to get is already been written for us before we were born. Literally, it says in the Hadith, before we were born, it was already written for us every single thing we're going to get. So we shouldn't. So the difference is what? What's the difference? Allah has already decided how much we're going to get. Allah has already written down what we're going to get. But what's up to us is whether we get it in a halal means or a haram means. So maybe, for example, okay, actually, there was a story, in fact, that there was a story about how someone was walking past a so what happened is, I can't remember the exact details, sorry, but basically someone went to steal, someone wanted something and he stole it, and then later on it was discovered that the person he stole it from was planning to give it to him as a gift anyway. You get what I mean? So it was already written to him. That thing was written for him no matter what. But what was left to him was whether he gets it in a halal way, in a lawful way, or in an unlawful way. And he decided he wants to get it in an unlawful. He stole it. If he had not gone and stole it, he would have got it anyway, because that person who owned it had planned to give it to him as a gift. So that's the point we need to understand. Everything's already written for us. Same with our lifespan as well. Our lifespan is already written for us. So at the end of the day, Allah already knows exactly when, and as Allah says in the Quran, no soul knows what they will get tomorrow, and no soul knows where or when they will die. So again, there's a story that once there was a person who was associated, he was a friend of the Prophet Sulaiman. You guys might know about the Prophet Sulaiman. And he was able to control the wind and so on, and control the jinn. Okay, this person, he saw a strange person looking at him. He didn't recognize that person, and then he realized it's the angel of death. The angel of death was staring at him. So he became very uneasy. So he said to the Prophet Sulaiman, he said, I don't like it that the angel of death is looking at me. It's making me very uneasy, which obviously it would make you uneasy. He said to the Prophet Sulaiman, can you command the wind because he had control of the wind, right? Can you command the wind? That was one of the special characteristics of the Prophet Sulaiman. For those of you who didn't know, the Prophet Sulaiman was given a lot of special gifts by Allah. One of them was that he could control the wind. So he said, can you command the wind to transport me to India, far away? So he did so. So this man ended up in India. What happened when he got to India? The angel of death came and took his soul. So afterwards, the angel of death told the Prophet Sulaiman, Allah had commanded me to take this person's soul in India, and I could see him here with you. So I was wondering what's he. That's why I was staring at him. I was wondering, why is he here when Allah has told me to take his soul in India? So do you guys get what I mean? At the end of the day, it's already written for us. There's a similar story that there was once a person who was on the top of a roof, on the top of a very high story building. He was a builder or something. He fell down from there. It's like 5, 6, 7 stories up. He fell down from there, and he didn't die. He was absolutely fine, apart from maybe a bruise or something. He was fine. He was so happy. He was so happy with that. He wanted to buy drinks for everyone. So he went across the road to the shop on the other side to buy drinks. And when he was crossing the road, he got run over by a car. So you guys get it? Like, it wasn't written for him to die die by falling down from there. It was written for him to die 2 minutes later, crossing the road. So at the end of the day, it's already written. Allah already knows exactly what is going to happen. And the same with our actions. So this is something for us to appreciate and realize that at the end of the day, every single thing which will happen in our life is already written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As some of the brothers said, it's not our duty to try and understand it or to try and rationalize it. It's our duty to believe in it. And again, there's an important point here about believing in what Allah has told us. You know this part about, do you guys know there are some people who try to rationalize everything in Islam? They try to make sense of everything. And if it doesn't make sense to them, then they don't really like it. So those types of people, when they first heard this hadith years ago, when it was first heard by them, they hated it. Because the hadith is saying, okay, he's going to be 40 days in this stage in mother's womb, then another 40 days in this stage, and then another 40 days in this stage. And that didn't make any sense to them. So these people hated it. Now, the people with the exact same mentality, this is their favorite hadith. Because now science has come to prove it. And of course, to some people, science is the superior thing, right? Science is superior to religion. And at the end of the day, we have to realize, science is always changing. Science is always changing. So, if something comes in the religion, that's what should be our first source. If science supports it, okay, fair enough. If it doesn't, who cares? Because at the end of the day, science is something which will always change, whereas what defines scripture is not going to change. Okay, we'll move on to the next hadith, because it's a short one, so we'll do it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. عن أم المؤمنين أم عبد الله عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد وفي رواية من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. So Aisha, who is Aisha? Prophet's wife. Aisha narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever invents something in this matter of ours, i.e. the religion, it will be rejected. And in another narration it says, whoever does an action which is not in accordance with our actions, i.e. his own actions, then it's rejected. So now, very quickly, for example, I asked the same question when it came to intention. Now we come to this. Oh no, we're talking about sunnah. Now we come to this. For example, going to university. The Prophet didn't go to university, did he? Does that mean it's an innovation? What do we think? If you say no, why not? Prophet didn't drive a car. Yes?
Well, see, those two things are different, right? There is an essence of a task, and then it's how you perform it. So, this is not to take in everything very literally, but he didn't drive a car, but he did travel through some means, right? And in a similar fashion, your first example, they didn't have university at the time, but he did have the Dar al-Arqam, right? There was a place where people educated themselves. He even told people to educate themselves. It's about following that thing that we have been taught. But the way in which we carry it out, it could be, well, as long as it's not against the Sunnah of the Prophet, it will be nice.
Yeah, that's a very good point. There's the end, and then there's the means, and over time the means can change. Another, I guess, a very simple way to answer it would be, this hadith specifically says anything in the religion. Now, university isn't necessarily something in the religion. It's something, it's not directly linked. When we talk about in the religion, it's a bit more specific. But again, now with these, so for example, let me see. Before, with the prayer, before the adhan. So the adhan, what do we say? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and so on. Before the adhan, in certain mosques, there's one which is 2 minutes from my house. Before the adhan, they start saying some other things. So in this one, they actually say as-salatu wa-salamu alayka ya Rasulullah, and they do some long chanting. Then they start doing the adhan, and they make it a habit to do that every single adhan. Now the adhan, is that an act of worship or not? So university is not directly an act of worship. What about the adhan? That's an act of worship, right? So if we bring something else and we make it a habit to do it, we do it every time, that is what we would call a bid'ah or an innovation. Similarly, in the same mosque and the same, like those types of mosques, after the prayer, they start doing some chanting again. So again, and they do it every single time. So again, that's something which we would try to avoid. Now, a very quick point here about bid'ah or innovation, because especially now in the 21st century, I think generally it's best avoided to go and try and convince people to go and tell people what they're doing is innovation, because nowadays it's actually usually it will cause more conflict rather than anything else. It will cause separation, it will cause division, and so on. So usually in our time it's best to just leave it yourself, to avoid it yourself. But if other people are doing it, maybe you can advise them a little bit, but don't go too overboard, because that has led to a lot of,
But by doing that, then you'd not be following the Hadeeth where the Prophet said that if there is an evil, you
and
stop.
I was about to come to that.
So
Yeah.
you would vocalize that, well, just because of the fear of creating conflict, if you keep haq, if you keep yourself from mentioning haq, then that's wrong, because if the Prophet ﷺ did that, then we would never get this beautiful deen.
No, of course, you're absolutely right. It's interesting you mentioned that hadith. I was just about to come to that. So there's a hadith, actually it comes in the fourth hadith Manawi as well, it's going to come soon, where the Prophet said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi." Whoever sees something wrong, they should change it first with what? With their hand. Like physically they should change it. If not, if they can't change it with their hand, then anyone? With your tongue. And if not with your tongue? With your heart. Okay, so we are living in a time where yes, of course we should try and correct people, no doubt. And I usually do, but at the same time, in 90% of those instances, they are already sort of set practices for some people which their grandfather from their grandfather from their grandfather has been doing, and if you try to correct them, it often causes more. I mean, by all means try. By all means try and advise people. Say to them, look, read the Sunnah of the Prophet. This is not from the Sunnah. But if you can, what I meant, I should have clarified that. What I meant is, if you can see it's not going to solve the problem and it's going to cause more issues than anything else, then just avoid it yourself. So in my example, there's a mosque which is near my house. They do all these strange things. There's another mosque that's about 2 minutes away. There's another mosque which is about 5 minutes away. Whenever I can, I go to the one that's further away, even though it's further away. It's simply to just avoid that mosque, because they're doing all sorts of strange stuff. I would try, but I've experienced this before, where you go and tell people something, and they say, well, no, this is what my father did, this is what my father did, and so on. And you can try and show them, look, it doesn't say, where does it say this in the Quran, where does it say this in the Hadith? And by all means try, again, as I said. But the thing is, especially if someone doesn't have a lot of knowledge themselves, right? Especially if someone doesn't have a lot of knowledge themselves, it's very difficult to argue with people on this, and more often than not, they will argue back, and then you'll end up causing divisions more than anything else. So, as a general overall advice, if you think you can, go for it. But more often than not, it will be difficult too. So just avoid what these people are doing. And if you know something yourself, then you should try and then you should try and implement it in your own life. Very quickly, just one last one. I mentioned this to the brothers the other day. Some of the brothers were there, because there are many things that we do, and we don't realize they're actually innovations. For example, when you're praying, what am I going to say?
Shoes.
Yes. What about the shoes?
It's actually recommended to pray with your shoes on.
Yeah, you actually pray with your shoes on. You don't take your shoes off to pray. So the Prophet ﷺ actually said, Khaliful Yahud, be different from the Yahud. Now, if anyone doesn't know who the Yahud are, ask me later. Be different from the Yahud, because the Yahud, they insist on taking their shoes off before they pray. That's like part of the prayer, is they have to take their shoes off. So be different from them. You actually pray with your shoes on. Now, obviously, we've got some nice carpet here. I'm not going to come and stand on this with my shoes. I'm not going to pray in my house with my shoes. But the point is, in those places where you would normally wear your shoes, you don't make it a point to take your shoes off just because you're praying. That kind of makes sense to people. So for example here, I mean, we would walk around with our shoes on here, right? So if I'm going to pray over here, I don't need to take my shoes off just because I'm about to pray. Whereas if I'm in a place where I don't wear my shoes anyway, like in my house, I don't wear my shoes. Okay, well, you don't put your shoes on to pray. The point is, you know how people make it a habit, they have to take their shoes off to pray, right? So I'm saying, like, you don't actually have to do that. In fact, the Prophet actually said, pray with your shoes on. And when he used to pray, because in his mosque, they didn't used to have carpets. So you'd actually wear your shoes everywhere anyway. So he would actually pray with his shoes on. So unless there's a reason to take your shoes off, you don't have to take your shoes off just to pray. So that's a simple example of something of an innovation which is spread, which maybe most of us are familiar with. Some of us might be doing that, so that's just something to throw out there. Apart from that, We'll end it there, inshallah. Unless anyone has anything to add. Brother, any?
Just a question.
Yes.
If we walk around on the other carpet with our shoes, how can we pray on it? Because we take the shoes outside and stuff.
Good question. Okay, so that's a question on fiqh. So in fiqh, they say the default of any place is that it's clean. The default of any place is that it's clean. If you see something there which is filthy, then obviously it's filthy. But if you can't see anything that's filthy, then by default it's clean. So you see, if you walk around outside and then you walk in here, but you can't see any filth, it's clean, so you can pray on it. Does that make sense?
That is to say that if you have some filth on your shoes, then you can pray with your shoes. But
Yeah.
if you don't, then the default of the shoes.
Yeah, unless you can see something that's filthy, the default is that it's pure. Anything else? Nothing else? Alright, we'll send it there. See you all tomorrow, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك